Thursday, November 17th. Welcome to a special Thursday edition of Beyond the Briefing. I am down here in Florida, actually here at a America First Policy Institute event at Mar-a-Lago. So I have a lot to get to. I figured a lot to break down this week in the world of politics, and instead of wait till Monday, we would kick it off here today. So much to get to. I want to talk about the Trump announcement, the midterm wrap up, what's going on in the House, the Senate, obviously some stuff going on with governors as well. So anyway, I want to run down all the stuff that's happening in politics because I'm sure that everyone's going to get asked about it over the weekend. So let's start with that big Trump announcement that happened Tuesday night, 9 o'clock at Mar-a-Lago. A lot of people questioning what it was going to look like. Frankly, I don't care who you are. I think it was pitch perfect. You could not like Trump, and I still think you can like the speech and like what he said. There's a lot of questions, right? Will he stay on message? Was that a one-off speech in terms of the tone, or is this something that is going to continue? Those are all valid questions, but I think it was a good speech. He focused on what he had done in the past. He focused on the failures of the Biden administration. He laid out kind of the agenda that he would for the future. It wasn't going after his opponents. He talked about the Georgia race. He didn't get bombastic. The funny part to me was a lot of the criticism about, he had low energy. He was sitting at Mar-a-Lago. This is a campaign kickoff, not an outdoor rally with fireworks and a bunch of lead-up speakers. His speech when he kicked off in 2015, coming down the escalator, wasn't bombastic either. This is a kickoff speech. I think it's funny. You can't have both ways. You can't say that he goes over the top and he's bombastic, and then he gives a speech like this and say, oh, it was low energy. Pick which one you want. But if your issue was, I like Trump's policies, I don't like the rhetoric, then last night Trump hit all the right chords. Or Tuesday night rather. Sorry, it's been a long week. I think that I get it, and so I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm not saying he's going to lose. I don't know what the world's going to look like, but I will tell you that from a kickoff perspective, he really wanted to try to get this thing to look more like 2016 than 2020. He's cut back on the number of advisors. He didn't want the showiness and the huge budgets. So far, so good. We're 2 days in. Anyway, so I just say that because I think that, we've got a long way to go. No one else has jumped into this. I've said this before. A healthy and robust primary is good. It helped him win in 2016. It helped Bill Clinton win in 92. It helped George W. Bush win. It helped Obama when he went against Hillary Clinton. And so primaries are good. So for everyone who's worried about DeSantis or Pompeo or Pence or whatever, I don't really care. I think that's good. Biden had a big primary. He ended up coming out on top. So if your issue is who's going to run and who's not, I don't really care. As long as they don't go after each other on a real personal level. Like, I'm proud of the job that Ron DeSantis has done. I think that Glenn Youngkin has done a great job in Virginia. We've got a lot of great people in the party right now. Go fight it out on policy. We don't need to make it personal, but I thought the event looked good. I thought the speech looked good. And they rolled it out well. We had Jason Miller on Spicer and Company talking about, the preparation leading up. They did a good job. And I get that all of the mainstream media and this establishment cabal type thing, the National Review, that they didn't like it. I get it. They've never liked him. So if you think that that's surprising, I don't. I would be surprised if you're surprised, right? That's the thing, is that none of these folks who are coming out now really have ever been with him. They were with him for 4 years because he's the president. They didn't want him in 2015. They didn't want him in 2016. They didn't want him. So none of this is shocking. Don't be surprised that the mainstream guys didn't want Trump. But like I said, I don't think that you can be that shocked with the speech that he gave and how he's rolled out so far. So far, so good. I brought this up the other day. We had a commissioner of the Federal Election Commission on the show. And the thing that I think is going to be interesting, we talked about timing. He did acknowledge Georgia in his speech. That was great. The thing that's so interesting, and I had this commissioner on the show because I want people to understand, he has $100 million in Save America. Now, legally, he can't coordinate and touch that anymore. He's got staff that works on it. They cannot be working with the campaign staff. That's illegal. So the $100 million could be supporting his efforts, but he can't coordinate the way he can. Could he show up at a Save America rally? Sure. but that's got to be planned, and then he can make, I mean, there's a whole bunch of legal nuances. So he's got to raise money from the ground up now into a new campaign account at $2,900 a clip. This is going to be interesting because I'm sure they explained it to him, but I think that saying it and then living it are very, very different. So it will be fascinating to me to see how that changes stuff. I also don't know that he's going to need a huge budget out of the gate anyway. He doesn't intend to hire a ton of folks. He doesn't intend to have some massive headquarters in Arlington like he did last time, took up multiple floors and had all the bells and whistles. I think he's going to, like I said, keep it nimble like he did in 2016. All of the sourcing says that it's going to be here in South Florida. As I said, I'm down here now. So, I don't know that he needs a ton of money, but there are some consequences of announcing this early in terms of what you can and can't do with that super PAC, and also what you have to do to raise money and then what you can and cannot do with that money. So just know that there were some consequences to that. I want to move on to kind of get into the midterms. Republicans, I put this out on my social media, have officially taken the House of Representatives. They've crossed the 218 threshold. They own the House of Representatives. They are going to control that chamber. That is huge. That ends the Biden legislative agenda, number one. Number two, it ends the reign of Speaker Pelosi. I will say this. I'm intrigued by where does Speaker Pelosi goes. I put a poll out on my newsletter. If you don't get that, please go to SeanSpicer.com. I put the poll out on Twitter as well. But Biden asked her to stay. And this is not what I was getting into, but I'm fascinated by this because how do you stay if you're not in leadership? And I don't know. I mean, she said that she wasn't going to stay in leadership, but then again, she said this before. And anyway, I'll be so intrigued, and it's amazing how little chatter there is about what her future is going to be. But just pay attention to that because Republicans are getting all the attention, but yet no one's asking what's going on with Nancy. I find it fascinating. But Republicans do have control. That means that they can stop everything in the House. No more big spending. No more legislative nuttiness and leftist policies. He still has executive orders, sure, but that's definitely not the same. So keep that in mind. And I would have liked the Senate because I think the nominees are something that I've always been concerned with, and he can still get those through now. That Georgia seat is going to be important on December 6th because if they get one more vote, it makes them getting these nominees through the Senate a heck of a lot easier. So keep in mind that's where that's why they really want this. It gives them cushion to get these folks through. So anyway, I will keep an eye on all of that because I do think that that's going to be something that is going to be of interest. Anyway, let me get back to this whole deal. Republicans have crossed that threshold. As I said, they control the House. They had their leadership elections. And I want to give you guys some context because I mentioned this before. It's important. If in 94, Republicans picked up 54 seats, but they only had a 26 seat majority, I think this time they end up with a 2 or 3. And I think this is going to be, fantastic. I mean, it looks like they're still going to pick up a decent amount of seats, but again, that majority is going to be slim. And that's going to make whoever the next speaker is, I'm going to get to that in a minute, just unbelievably difficult. So in the House, there were leadership elections. Let me just start kind of at the bottom, if you will. There's a conference. The House Republican Conference has a secretary and a vice chair. The secretary did have a contested race. Lisa McClain won that race over 2 other folks. I'm not trying to demean it. It's not like a big important position. It's a nice stepping stone. You technically get to be in leadership, same with the vice chair. Elise Stefanik was reelected as chairman of the House Republican Conference. Byron Donalds from Florida had put up a race against her just because I think he felt like she needed to have opposition. But she was easily reelected. Then Steve Scalise from Louisiana, he was elected majority leader. By the way, Richard Hudson is the new chairman of the National Republican Senate Campaign Committee, Congressional Campaign Committee. That is the campaign arm of the House Republicans. Okay, so and I mention that because the race for whip, which is the guy or girl, right? But we just haven't had one yet, who is in charge of counting the votes to make sure that when they put something on the floor that they've got, 218. Um, um, so anyway, just keep that in mind because there were three people that ran for the whip. The current NRCC chairman, Tom Emmer, Jim Banks, and Drew Ferguson. Drew Ferguson was the deputy whip to Steve Scalise. He ran. And then Banks ran. He's the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, and then Emmer. Banks won the first vote. Okay, and by the way, this is something, it's funny, when that vote came out, he won by about 10 votes. I think it was 72, 62, 61, something like that. If you win a vote like that and you don't win outright in the first vote, my experience in working in the House of Representatives is that you don't win. If you can't win it outright on that first vote, you can't win. So anyway, the interesting thing is second vote comes out. Ferguson drops off the bottom. Last guy, he was the bottom vote getter by one vote. He had the 61. Emmer had the 62. Emmer then beats Banks on the second vote by like 20 votes, which was interesting because Emmer's was perceived as the more moderate candidate, Banks the more MAGA conservative candidate. As I said, he is the chairman of the Republican Study Committee. Anyway, so that's just your little anecdote on the House. Then the big race for Speaker, Kevin McCarthy prevailed. But here's the thing. He lost 31 members, mostly Freedom Caucus members, who voted for Andy Biggs of Arizona. And you had people like Bob Good of Virginia, Ken Buck of Colorado, all vote for Andy Biggs. Now, okay, so McCarthy becomes the nominee of the Republican Party for Speaker. He wins big. He won like 180 to 31, 188, I think, to 31. Okay, so that's great, but here's the problem. Let's just say Republicans end up with 219, 220. You need 218 votes on January 3rd to become Speaker of the House. The Democrats are going to become united. They'll put up theirs, okay, and their candidate, and they'll get whatever they have, 214 or something like that. If a bunch of our guys voted present or something like that, that takes the threshold down. Anyway, I say all this just to get to the point that Kevin McCarthy's now got to figure out a way to get these guys back in the fold. They're asking for a lot of things that I don't think they're going to want to give up. They want additional a restructuring of the steering committee. That's the committee that is set up to give out or dole out appointments on committees. And the leadership right now has an outsized role on this. And the leadership likes having that. I just don't see them wanting to give it up. Anyway, there's a bunch of these demands they have. I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm telling you, I thought we'd see 5 or 10 defections. He's 31. That is a big problem if you're Team McCarthy. I had Bob Good on the show. I mean, look, I'm not making the case for one person or another, but I'm just going to tell you, I mean, McCarthy put $500 million into this race. He backed all sorts of, everyone from conservatives to liberal, to moderates. His goal was to win that majority back and stop Joe Biden. And if you don't have the majority, you have nothing. And then the Biden machine and Pelosi roll on. I mean, that's the thing, is that no matter what you think, if you don't have the majority, you've got nothing. And you got to give McCarthy credit for that. He at least he made them play defense. He put us on offense. He got the seats. He won the House. You got to give him credit for that. Okay, no one else went out and raised the money. And all these people who are complaining, you have to say to them, what did you do? Bob Good might have a great argument. I'm not here to judge it. But at the end of the day, he put $27,000 towards the NRCC. $27,000. His NRCC dues were $175,000. That's what every member gets assessed, something to kick in to help win or maintain the majority. He had been asked to kick in $175,000 because he's on the committees he's on and he's in a safe district. He put in $27,000. And by the way, McCarthy, when Good was in trouble in 2020, put in $2 million to make sure he got reelected. I'm just saying, understand the context of some of this. Anyway, so that's kind of where things stand right now. But I'm telling you, this is going to be an interesting road to hoe for McCarthy. What he does between now and January 3rd is going to be crucial because these guys aren't going to let down. Matt Gaetz of Florida said he is never McCarthy, never. Now, Okay, maybe there's something, but that's a pretty strong line to be drawing in the sand, I think. So my point is, just keep this in mind. This is going to be interesting to say the least. Anyway, know that that's happening. In the Senate yesterday, McConnell was reelected as the minority leader. Here's what I thought was interesting. In the lead up to this election, you had 10 senators saying, everyone from Lindsey Graham to Ted Cruz to Marco Rubio to Rick Scott saying we should delay the elections. Now, Tom Cotton of Arkansas said, why are we delaying something when there's nobody challenging anyone for any one of the leadership races? Not a single one, not conference secretary, not conference, not minority whip, not anything. There is not one contest that's being contested. I don't mean to use those words next to each other, but there it is. And so Cotton's point was, why are we waiting? Like, what are we doing here? This is silly. We're wasting time. And but other people were like, well, wait a second, Herschel Walker's race isn't decided. And then Alaska, you've got Murkowski and Chewbacca still trying to figure out who's going to represent Alaska. Yes, he'll be Republican, but each one of them wants to do it. Okay, so then you've got to ask yourself, McConnell said, you know what, I'm not going to move the elections. We're going to have them. Well, guess what? He won today. 37 for him, 10 for Rick Scott, and one president. I skipped that part. Rick Scott finally said, I'll step up and do it. Now, I got to tell you this right now. McConnell, for all the criticism, knows what he's doing, knows how to count votes. He knew he had the votes, at least now, and that's why he didn't want to move the thing. But I will say that the idea of no one stepping up to the plate, it's really easy to say we should delay. But at some point, that's great, but that's not exactly a big act of courage there. So for Rick Scott, who's the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, to at least put himself up there and say, fine, I'll put my name on the ballot. I'll run against you, McConnell. Now think about this just for a second. You're running against the guy who controls a lot of things that happen on the Republican side. Committee assignments, floor time, all that stuff. So when you go up and, as the old saying says, if you're going to kill the king, make sure you kill him or shoot him. If you're going to shoot the king, make sure you kill. He didn't. That's a lot of bad blood. And think about those 10 people who voted for Scott. I will say this. I give them credit. They at least put their it wasn't just a bunch of tweets. They finally were willing to, to live up to this. So anyway, I say all that, but because this was a big deal. I think somebody, historically, somebody has to pay the price. Somebody has to be acknowledged as the person who didn't do their job. And so far, nobody has. You don't have anybody in the leadership in either place. The RNC has an election in January. Ronna McDaniel put out a note that she's running for her fourth term. That would be historic. No other chair has ever had 4 terms. But she claims that she has over 100 votes. You need 80 something. So it's 168 members that make up the RNC, 3 from every state. You have a national committee man, a committee woman, and a chairman from every state and territory. If you take 3 times that, you get 168. So divide that by 2 and you get 84. So if you get 85 votes, you win, you become chairman. She says she has 100, so therefore she continues as chair. Now, the vote's not down. It's in January. But, that's the question is, where's the accountability? Does there need to be accountability? I don't know. I'm not saying there does, but it just is interesting because for all the angst, we're just, there's not that much. And now, who knows? Maybe McCarthy becomes that. But his team feels very confident with the vote that they have. So, by the way, in Arizona, that race was called both for Blake for Mark Kelly in the Senate race. Blake Masters has conceded to Mark Kelly and said that he's moving on. Carrie Lake has, by the news media account, lost to Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State. Carrie has not conceded. And there's still votes out there. So who knows where this thing is going? It's interesting, to say the least. I don't see Carrie conceding. The thing that was interesting to me about this, I asked President Trump on our show the other day, what do you think about Carrie Lake as a VP nomination? Several people have brought her up, and he actually said, I agree, I like her, she's someone I would consider. I don't think you consider someone who didn't even get elected, though. I mean, what she's been, I mean, again, nothing personal, but you can't really have a VP who has never served in government in any role. I mean, her only background now is as a TV host, and I'm not demeaning that as a TV host myself, but you're talking about someone who's next in line to the presidency. You need to at least think about how that's going to go over in terms of experience. Maybe he doesn't care because he served as president and he just wants somebody who can be a loyal vice president. Who knows? But I don't think that helped her. I think if she had won, she definitely would have been right there with him. Anyway, I know that's a lot to get to, but I know the weekend was coming up. I wanted to lay all this out. I had an opportunity to be down here in Florida at Mar-a-Lago with the team to talk to everybody, to see everyone. I kind of wanted to give you guys a little flavor of what was happening. Tonight, we have a panel discussion with a bunch of us about the midterms, kind of what I'm doing now, I'm going to do with a bunch of folks from the America First Policy Institute. And then Lee Greenwood's playing. Then tomorrow, there's a few more panels. And then President Trump's having a big gala at the ballroom there. So lots going to happen, fun for us. And then I get back home on Saturday and weekend, and then obviously head into Thanksgiving week. So any case, appreciate all you do to support the podcast. I hope you continue to like, review, and share. Have a great weekend. I hope you found this helpful. I really wanted to make sure we had time to break it all down. I will see you on Monday. Have a great one.